David was this skinny, scrawny little shepherd. Similar build to Jamie.
I can take my shirt off right now if you want me to.
We won't do that because we don't want our views to drop.
This is what was amazing about Jesus. The only people that he condemned were people that put themselves on a pedestal.
After obtaining everything that you could possibly want in the world, he realized everything he had in his life meant nothing.
Don't do what the world does. Put others before yourself. Look to be generous. Look to serve others. And that's actually where the power is.
As a young man, you see someone doing something wrong, or you feel like you're doing something wrong, have the integrity to pull them up or pull yourself up and do the right thing.
All right, guys, welcome back to another episode in the locker room. It's a
Welcome back.
beautiful night, and we have an amazing episode.
Amazing guest? No guest.
No guest today.
We are the guests.
We are the guests of our own
This is
show.
true. So we're going to be running through Bible stories and life lessons that can be applicable, mostly for young men, but realistically anyone.
This is going to be fun.
We're going to go through the stories, the life lessons, and how you can apply them. So this is going to be an amazing one. Before we kick off, it'd be, I guess, to set the tone, we just want to say, like, as Christians, we obviously know that the Bible is powerful, but for anyone who's not Christian, this book has stood the test of time over thousands of years, right? So even if you're not Christian, you know that you can learn something from this. The Bible has been around for thousands of years. It's the most sold book ever in history. It's sold millions of copies. I actually have a few stats to sort of set the tone.
Shows us stats.
It's the most read book ever in history,
Wow.
despite being written 2,000 years ago. So there's obviously power in it. It's the most stolen book in the world.
Stolen.
They give it for free at hotels.
What does that mean by stolen?
No, people, it's not free. People steal it.
Oh, because it's illegal
Oh,
in some
because
countries.
they just give it and then it's
Yeah,
taken to
yeah,
the hotel.
There's
I
sick. Yeah.
I don't mind them taking it.
Do you mean that it's
Yeah, I
illegal?
know, it's not the
Do you
worst.
mean
It's
that
not the worst
stolen,
thing
it's
they could
illegal in
steal.
some countries, so you have to sort of...
It is actually illegal in some countries.
It's not the worst thing you could steal because maybe they'll
It's
come to
not
God
actually.
and then learn to not steal.
Oi.
There you go.
You like that?
I like
There's
that.
6.4 Bibles sold every 10 seconds. That's almost one a second.
Let's just
Wow.
wait.
1,
Yes.
2.
Right. People risk their lives to get access to it. So as you said before, like it's banned in some countries,
Yeah,
like
definitely.
even in China. But people, so
It's banned in China? I brought my Bible to China.
Oh,
Was I breaking the law?
Did you take it through
without me knowing?
customs?
No, I should have. Hey, I should declare it on the passenger incoming card.
or I think it's maybe not fully banned, but it's
Probably largely.
get. It's very hard to
like
get.
frowned
And that
upon.
should tell
Yeah.
you guys that the Bible definitely has some, not just practical, but spiritual power to it.
100%.
Yeah, why would they ban a book that's
Just a
not
book.
real or has no substance?
100%.
But once again, as Bayley just said, let's reiterate the fact that, we're just sharing our thoughts and our beliefs on the subject. But, to back everything that we are talking about, the Bible does have some serious power behind it.
And I love the fact that everyone can get something from this. So if you're thinking, oh, wait, let me just get out of this video, just wait a sec.
Have an open
'Cause-
mind.
Yeah, have an
I was an
open mind.
atheist my whole life, and
Exactly.
I found the Bible to
and
be
we're not
very
saying
helpful.
just after this video, you have to come to the Bible, you have to come to Christianity. That's not what we're
Yeah.
saying. That'd be great. But what we're trying to say is everyone, doesn't matter where you are, what color skin, where you're from, you can actually learn and gain something from this.
Look, and even if you're not Christian, there's lessons in this book from the wisest, wealthiest, most powerful men who've ever walked the earth. So you want to read a sales book from a guy who's been a good salesman for the last 10 years and try and learn some lessons from them.
100%.
Why wouldn't you learn lessons from people that lived thousands and thousands of years ago that's
Yeah.
still relevant today?
That's
right.
So there's so much we can learn.
Let's do it.
So let's jump straight into it.
All right, so I want to start off with the story of King Solomon. Have you heard that one before?
Yes.
I know bits of it.
We know
Okay,
bits.
cool. So how's this, right? Solomon was the son of King David and Bathsheba. And at 20 years old, he actually became the king. So imagine like 20 years old, you've just been given this amazing title of the world.
At 20.
20 years old,
It's like a few years older than Bayley.
pretty much.
Bro,
What were you
Bro.
doing at 20, bro?
definitely not king of
Just
the world. I was
surfing,
just
long
too busy
hair.
mucking around. Bro, I was probably working a job and just crumbling over the pressure of one task.
Exactly
Learn the
right.
pressure
So
of
imagine
running
being a king
kingdom.
at 20. So then what happened was Solomon actually had a dream one night. And in his dream, God appeared to him. And God said to him, Solomon, I will give you anything you want. What do you want?
Anything.
And imagine like at 20 years old being a king, you've got like the whole world in front of you. Like, what would you ask for example, Chris?
Me
Lambo,
Nah, me personally, I'd
girls,
ask for
money, fame.
I'd ask for the health and well-being of my family and myself.
Bro, that's beautiful.
That's
Yeah.
actually.
I'd
very
love
touching.
to say I agree, but to be honest, I don't know. I'd probably say Lambo, $1 billion,
Yeah, something like
10
that.
islands,
Exactly.
fame. I don't know.
So God basically
Very,
asking this question: what do you want?
materialistic
What
of
is
you,
it that
Bayley.
you want? And you know what he said?
What do you say?
He said, "I want wisdom, so that I can follow the purpose that you have for me."
Wow.
So wisdom, and obviously wisdom is like intelligence, intellect, all these sorts of things. But imagine 20 years old being king, you ask for wisdom over anything else.
Yeah, wow.
Anyways, so God was extremely surprised and happy about Solomon's decision to want wisdom over anything else. And in saying that, because he was so happy, he made him the wisest man on earth, plus,
And to ever live, wasn't it?
and to ever live,
Yeah.
plus he gave King Solomon everything else that he could have asked for, such as the fame, materialism, money,
Wow.
girls, you
Yeah.
name it, right?
Bro, imagine.
Exactly. And so,
So what? Okay, what was? I know you're gonna say some more stuff, but
Yeah.
what was? Like, what did he do with all that wisdom? Like, what was
exactly,
the-
good question. So
Yeah.
he had one of the largest empires on the planet. That was one thing. He built something called the Temple of Jerusalem, which was incredibly big in those days. But get this right. This guy, considering God gave him everything, and I'm talking the good, which is, the fulfilling stuff, but also the stuff that we all in this world long for, such as materialism. Guess how many girls this guy had?
I know, it's a lot, eh?
So King Solomon had 700 wives and 300 concubines. And concubines basically just means hoes.
So,
So 1,000 women,
I know what you're going to say.
1,000 women at his disposal, you could say.
No wonder he had all that wisdom, bro.
So,
to
to
have
gain
one
wisdom.
wife or one partner, you need to be a wise man to keep
That's
them
right.
happy.
That's right. But this guy
But
had 1,000.
700 women.
700 plus 300.
Bro,
Imagine
you
the
need more than
wisdom.
wisdom for
You
that.
need more than
I know.
wisdom, patience, wisdom.
Exactly.
Jesus.
So,
That's
so yeah, imagine being this guy, and obviously he was king at the same time. So he had everything. He was the wisest man on earth. He had everything. Anyways, the story gets really deep here. So towards the end of his life, biblical scholars predict that he died around the age of 60. And towards the end of his life, you know what he said? He realized at the end of it, after chasing or after obtaining everything that you could possibly want in the world, materialism, power, intellect, you name it.
Yeah, he literally had everything, bro. He
had
became the most
everything?
powerful, wealthiest.
Exactly. But you know at the end of it what he realized? He realized that everything he had in his life meant nothing.
what?
And you hear this with like celebrities like Dan Bilzerian, for example, what we were talking about before. He's now got a girlfriend.
Bro,
even though he
I
could-
find that crazy.
Even though he could,
He's had
have everything he
everything.
wants. Exactly.
That
And
most guys dream of.
And on top of that, from him realizing that, everything he had was meaningless, do you know what he said was the only meaning that he had in his life or that he wanted in his life? Was to serve God.
Wow.
That's powerful.
So after
man.
having everything the world could offer, his final conclusion and message was that everything is vanity, only God matters.
Correct.
Yeah, yeah.
How
so
crazy is
powerful,
that?
bro, you
And I
probably had
think-
like a similar.
Yeah, can you relate to
situation
that?
bro?
I can relate because obviously, he had
yeah.
everything. I
Did
was
it-
like a microcosm of
Did
that.
it hit
if anything.
700?
No. It definitely didn't.
But
But I think. Oh, hey, there he is. We should have a Bayley testy bot
Yes.
counter each
Wait,
episode.
Bro,
Can
you're
you
lucky.
add that
you-
in?
Someone please
you
add that in.
a tally
Editor,
of
James, add that in. please.
Bailey's testy pot.
Bro, you just escaped that question. I saved you there.
No, I'm still gonna answer it.
All right, go.
So yes, I can somewhat, relate in a tiny sense. I have been obviously in the
Don't talk
social
yourself
media space for a long time, and in this particular industry, it is based on a lot of vanity. And I think to me, like, I kind of did obtain a lot of things that I was after in my previous life before I, found God and became Christian and a man of value and more, morals you could call it. So whenever I was chasing these things, for example, money, fame, girls, whatever it was like the most weird, ironic feeling, because when you would obtain these things, you would either have a bit of a thrill and adrenaline during the time, but then after you'd feel even emptier than before,
Yeah.
or you then continued down such an even faster pursuit of these things where it led you into a place where you never thought you'd end up. So I think that people sort of like when they're chasing dopamine all the time, it's almost an escape for, I guess, what they're actually experiencing in real time. Plus, think about why we actually chase materialism. It's because we believe that materialism will be the fulfillment that we're looking
yeah.
for.
Yes, so true, bro.
And
But it's actually not.
Is that what happened for you?
It's what happened to me, exactly. Yeah. So, and then, doing a 180 and obviously giving my life to Christ and becoming a man of God now, it's funny because my life is so quote unquote, simple and sort of mundane, but like I've never been more fulfilled in my entire life.
So you had a lot of things that guys would aspire to have, dream
Absolutely.
of having, and it's almost like a never ending hole. Like you just try to fill up this hole, you dig a hole and you're trying to fill it up.
Yep.
And it just never fills up.
And it's not just me, you hear it all the time.
You never felt fulfilled.
Correct, never.
And then what now? You got rid of all that stuff,
Dude,
and you feel more fulfilled than ever.
Exactly. So my little quote is this. People ask me, what do you do these days? And I go, GWC.
Oh,
They go, what's that?
He's got a little
Yeah.
is it acronym?
I go,
that?
you don't know what GWC is, bro? It's the way of
Bro.
life. And they go, no, what's GWC? Is it GTL, Gym 10 Laundry? Is it Geordie Shore? I'm like, no.
Wait,
no.
Geordie
let's
Shore.
start a hashtag.
GWC. They go, what's GWC? I go, gym, work, and church.
I think you said
Oi.
gym worship, but yeah, cool.
Nah, that's
That's all I
working.
do these days. So,
So would you say, like, for young guys out there who maybe haven't experienced to the level, the girls, the fame, the money, and knows that it doesn't bring them fulfillment? Because a lot of guys, like, might be like, okay, that's cool for you to say, bro, but you actually experienced it. I want to learn for myself. It's like,
Yeah.
when millionaires go, oh, money doesn't make you happy. It's like, all right, cool. You figure that
Give
out.
me the
But
money first.
yeah, I want to figure that out for myself.
Let me make
Give me
my
the money,
mistakes.
and then I'll tell everyone else it doesn't fulfill you. So, like, how do younger guys sort of like put that into practice? Because it's easy to say once you've been there. But if you're like a young 18-year-old guy, it's easy to say, oh, these things aren't going to make me happy. But it's so hard to put into practice until you've been there. You know what I mean? So,
yeah,
like,
absolutely.
how do we make that practical?
And do you think they need to witness similar, not to your level, but similar? They have to have their own.
Have a bit
journey.
of life
They
experience.
have to have
or
a bit of
something.
life experience to.
let me tell you one thing. I think that people don't realize when you go down a certain path and you go so far down that you get to a point where you're like, actually, what I thought was sustainable or what I thought I actually was looking for my whole life is meaningless. You're actually past the point of irreparability. And what I mean is this. For me personally, like I went so down a deep rabbit hole of doing certain things that I thought were cool and that people of this world thought were cool as well and used to high five me for and encourage me to do. And then when I got there, I actually realized that, wow, like there are some things in life that I just wish I never did because now I'm like almost at like a point of no return.
Yeah.
Regret, though.
Yeah.
And what I mean by that is
think it
that
made you who you are.
things that I, experienced, for example, in this field, in this industry of entertainment that I, firsthand have experienced from now are things that sometimes like I just wish that I never even saw or did.
Yeah.
Because now, for example, I'll give you an example in relationships. It's like I believe that God talks about, no sex before marriage because what tends to happen is that when we get so fixated on the short-term dopamine that we get from, say, sleeping around or the thrill of, chasing women 24/7, it puts us in this kind of like mindset, but also like a way of operating, which makes us operate in this field in not just every way of life, but also in the way in which we constitute relationships as just being, oh, I hope they satisfy this and that's it.
So you
So
almost,
it affects pair bonding is what I'm trying to say. So when I, am in a relationship, for example, I'm always going to have things in the back of my head where it's like comparing to very unsustainable, unlasting and irrelevant things that I've experienced before because I have been down that track, if that makes sense.
Okay,
so some
so-
things in life, I just believe that you should know where the line is and not cross them.
yeah. So
You got a lot to say,
So-
don't you?
No, go.
No, I just want to just reiterate. So for what I gathered from that is essentially your actions have consequences.
Correct.
And whilst you might want to figure that out for yourself, you're going to have to deal with the repercussions of the lessons.
Exactly.
And then on top of that, I forgot what the other part
You're
was.
just wasting your time.
I agree with everything you just said, but I also disagree because I think despite you having to deal with your repercussions of your actions that you did previously, those made you who you are today and actually gave you the wisdom to know what not to do now. So the things that those paths that you went down, I'm not saying everyone has to go through the same journey as you, but for you specifically, those shaped you into the person you are today.
Of course.
And also have taught you and shown you what was wrong.
But
and
think of it
now
this
you
way.
know what's right.
But think of it this way, like God has a plan for each and every single one of us, right? So just because I have, done certain things in my life which I'm not proud of at all, and that yes, you're right, I can relate to others. It doesn't mean that the person that hasn't done those things can't also
Correct.
be a message, of goodness in the world as well. So
course.
it's like God uses people for His own, glory and to relate to other people. So it's not to say that everyone needs to go out and do things that aren't so good, but I'm just saying that like the people that do, such as myself, that have in the past, I'm no better than the person that hasn't done any of it.
Correct.
You know
but
what I mean?
shouldn't regret those experiences and say, in my opinion, you shouldn't say, oh, I wish I could have unseen those or not done those things. Because that was part of your journey specifically.
I'm not saying I regret it. I'm just saying that like the lessons I learned that I can take forward and teach others about is invaluable. But what I am saying is that I definitely know that there are repercussions from things that I used to, do.
Sure.
And by the way, before anyone starts guessing all these weird things, I just used to party a lot,
What did you get up to? Man?
It was nothing that bad. I'm just trying to like make a point here.
You had any Hollywood parties?
Nah, I was going to sound fortunately not.
Off the back of what you just said, Chris, I also want to say that what if you could, because you're saying maybe people need to experience those things to take the lessons from it, to make them who they are, right?
I'm not saying everyone has to. I'm just saying in Jamie's specific
For his scenario,
circumstance, I think those shape
For him,
into
I
who they
agree,
are.
I agree.
But as Jamie said, I don't think everyone watching needs to go through everything Jamie went through, or even close to what he went through. You don't have to.
Yeah.
But I just think that those shaped him into who he is, and now
agree.
he's learned so much from those experiences.
Agree.
And just to clarify as well, before anyone starts making any more weird, thoughts in their head about what I used to be like, I wasn't that bad.
You were pretty bad.
I was just like, I was very promiscuous. That's what I was,
Promiscuous
and that's it.
boy.
I didn't get into drugs. I didn't get into all this other stuff. I was just quite promiscuous. That's all. So that's why I'm focusing on the relationship aspect of this topic.
Good clarification.
I wanted
bro.
to clarify that.
Bailey was trying to say something.
No, I was just going to say, but what if people could take the lessons and fast track and not have to go through the consequences, right? So
Well, that's why. Sorry,
That's why we're here.
sorry.
No, you want to clarify something else?
No. That's why, like, when your parents tell you something's bad, they're not just saying it's bad to sound like they're being parents. They actually know what's going to happen if you continue down this cycle.
Well, we've all been there where someone literally maps out what we should and should not do, and we still don't take it in. Maybe
course.
that's our own ignorance.
Yeah.
But like if you're, the story, someone tells you not to do something, you want to do it more. That's just a flawed part of being a human, right? We want to do what someone tells us not to do. So someone in that circumstance, their parents said, don't do this, don't do that. They're like, no, I'm going to do it. And they fall. They make mistakes. Some shit happens and it's very bad in their life. But they had to go through that for them to learn. They weren't going to listen to their parents.
Yeah, I
Same
agree.
thing. Like we're here to provide this value, and hopefully someone doesn't need to go through all the downfalls that you had. And maybe they listen to, big brother Jamie and say, shit, Jamie's went through that. Maybe I don't need to. But maybe they won't take it in. Maybe they won't listen, and they
I'm
need
not
to go
saying
through their
they
own.
necessarily need to go one way or the other. I'm just saying that the general advice out there is for their
Fair.
for their benefit,
100%.
especially from people that love them.
Bailey?
I was going to say, if you can download lessons that people have taken the hard path and make it shorter, like in business,
Exactly.
if you learn from
Yeah.
people who've walked the path and they can
Exactly.
save you, you might get to the realization to scaling a $10 million business in 10 years.
Amazing.
But someone who's gone before you can say, how about if you do
Yes.
this, you can
Yes.
get to the same spot in
Yes.
3 years. And I think that's where the power in lessons come from people who've walked your path, where you can go, I don't have to go through this 10-year cycle of ups and downs and figuring out whether this is purpose or not. You can take this lesson and say, all right, Jamie says these things don't fulfill me.
Yeah.
Maybe I should look at other things that might find more
Consider it.
fulfillment. And
Consider
bang,
it.
you've just got 10 years worth of life saved in a year.
In
So that's the way you could
in
apply it. In theory, yes. I know
that
exactly
makes
what you're saying,
Perfect
yeah.
sense.
But everyone
100%.
doesn't do it, yeah.
But unfortunately, we're all stubborn. We're all stubborn and we're ignorant
And
and, we
that's
don't want
fine.
to listen.
And the least we can all do is share our wisdom and,
Of
and
course.
say, you know what, if you want to take this, take it. If you don't, that's completely fine as well.
100%.
Yeah, but we've
What's
all
it-
had that experience where someone has told us something. Like I've got that from you guys, even like every week. You guys will say something,
Did you listen?
and you'll listen and you will apply it, and it makes your life better. It makes it more fruitful. Your business grows faster. So those little nuggets is where you can.
I think we
fast track.
get
But I know exactly what you're saying, and I agree.
All right, so I want to talk to you guys about a different story, okay?
I'm ready.
So I want to tell you guys about David and Goliath.
Oh,
This is a great one.
that's a very famous one.
So I'm gonna set the scene. So Goliath, he was the biggest guy you've ever seen. So picture a massive mammoth, jacked, tall, similar to someone in this room.
How tall was he?
He was at least he was 9 feet tall.
Yeah, it's like documented that he was
approximately 9 feet tall.
Wow.
Okay.
And what
So
are we?
Bro,
We're
that's like
six-
bigger than NBA players.
Yeah. So
We're like 6'1", 6'2".
yeah, average guy that's tall, usually 6 something. 7 foot is really tall. 9 foot, right? Giant.
And jacked.
Okay. And then there's David. So David was this skinny, scrawny little shepherd, similar build to Jamie. Okay.
Bro, you wait till I start doing my neck exercises.
Yeah, cool, man. Anyway, so he was a similar build to Jamie, very scrawny, okay? And
I can take my shirt off right now if you want me to.
I think for the
I got some photos on my phone.
for the
Do you guys want to see?
for the
He's lying.
for our
What do you
viewers,
take
we
to get so
probably
jacked?
won't do that because we don't want our views to drop. So anyway, as I said, David was very scrawny, skinny, and he was every example of a man who wasn't on paper capable of much, right?
Are you serious?
No, that was too much. But essentially, what happened was he overheard Goliath disrespecting God, okay? Mocking God and disrespecting him. So what he did was he actually volunteered to battle Goliath in a fight. So everyone would have thought David was going to get smashed, he was going to get killed. This is like the most impossible task. Like if anyone said at this time, I'm going to take on Goliath, people would have laughed at them and said this is actually a death sentence. Suicide, right?
Picture the biggest, most jack guy you've ever seen, and think of your smallest mate
Definitely
or friend
not
that's like,
Yeah. Like
Bro,
tiny, right?
put them together in a fight, and what do you think is going to
Yeah.
happen? It's literally a death sentence.
What do you think is going to happen? So, but what happened is, and the remarkable part of this story is with one stone, okay, with one stone, David used his slingshot and hit Goliath straight in the head. And Goliath fell, okay? But then
Yeah.
David actually used Goliath's sword, his own sword, to finish the job. The
Right.
ultimate disrespect, right? But there's a deeper message to this. The reason why David was able to do this is because God was actually preparing him in his past life. So David, because he was a shepherd, he would actually have to fight off lions and bears. Throughout his life, he had to fight off lions and bears as a shepherd, right? And he would practice this with his slingshot. He would shoot him with the slingshot, with a stone, and he'd put him down. And whilst he thought this was such a mundane thing in his life, he's just a shepherd, he's got no real life.
Yeah, he might have felt like the day-to-day was sort of mundane or
Yeah.
like not valuable,
He
right?
felt like he's got no real contribution to anything.
Yeah.
You know, very basic, mundane
Just
life.
a random guy in the middle of nowhere with a bunch of sheep.
Exactly.
You might have thought that.
But this was all God's preparation for him in his moment. In his
100%.
moment to shine.
Let's go.
When he was put
he had
to
no
the
idea.
test, when he was put to the test, he used the things that God prepared him for to take down Goliath. So what this shows is that, you might be sitting there at home thinking you're doing things that, might not be very meaningful or mundane or, you're not really, there's no substance to it. But it is all part of God's preparation for your moment.
100%.
That's a massive
bro.
one. That's a massive
so
one.
good.
Because so many young guys out there, they say like, I don't know what I want to do with my life. I've got no plans. I've got no idea of what like my talents are, and they're just lost. But I think what that sort of lesson teaches us is that God has a plan for all of us, whatever it is, and that He might be preparing you for something that you have no idea that you'll be doing in 5-10 years time that will actually change humanity or whatever it is. So that's a really good lesson.
Stay in your lane. Have faith, and just do what you're doing. And it's all part of your journey.
And God's building the skills, using your talents to build the skills
100%.
to build up for your moment where you're going to have a big impact.
And you wouldn't even know what you're building or learning.
And speaking of
100%,
talents,
yeah.
God gives us certain talents. You have to understand that, talent can be built, I guess, physically and crafted out and whatnot. But why is someone talented as a musician, whereas someone is talented as a sportsman, for example? We didn't necessarily learn them at a young age. You can obviously, but
can improve.
we have natural talents
Of
that we have,
course.
right?
100%,
Some people
yeah.
might be good at talking or speaking or writing emails. Or any of that sort of stuff, you know what I mean? So it
Yeah.
just depends on like what God's blessed you with and how you're going to use that for His purpose.
Yeah,
100%.
I think that's powerful, man.
Yeah.
All right, so I know Bailey's been waiting to say his story
For his
because I
moment
know
to
he's
shine.
always got some gems to drop. So Bailey,
Take it away, my
Welcome.
friend.
All right.
Welcome to the locker room.
Welcome to the
Thank
locker
you,
room.
thank you. All right. There's been some amazing stories so far, but one story that really sticks out for me in the Bible is the story of Noah. And everyone knows this one. This
course.
is a big story. Noah's Ark.
Yep.
This story, so picture this, right? For those of you who don't know this story, I'll set the context. Imagine this. God's given you a vision and a mission. God told him, build an ark. And an ark's a boat, this massive boat. And he spent 100 years building this boat. So
100
picture
years.
this, right?
100
God gives you a plan, build this boat. He lived in a place, I don't even think it rained that much. So imagine you're out the front of your house building this massive boat for 100 years. Imagine his neighbors walking past, calling him a psychopath, calling him crazy.
That's all he did.
Huh?
That's all he did.
Yeah,
Bro,
build
people
this
don't
boat.
want to
Yeah.
work on something for a week.
exactly.
Imagine someone telling you 100 years.
Wow.
I'm sure everyone watching has been, put their mind to something to work on, and all your friends, your family,
Mock you.
random people mock you. They're like, you're wasting your time. What are you doing? Do something creative. Do something, more valuable. But this
Literally.
guy had a message.
100%.
Wow.
Wow, that's so powerful. He would have been copying hate. He would have had people going, "You're crazy." But the lesson in this is when God gives you a vision, other people don't understand it. Like when you know
Yes.
deep in your heart, like this is what I'm meant to do.
Yep.
And
no one gets
you
it.
just have to follow it. If God's given you a word, people are not going to believe it because they don't have the context, they don't have the conviction, and God's placed that in your heart to bring to fruition.
Absolutely.
And to finish off the rest of the story, basically, he was building this ark for 100 years, and God basically flooded the whole earth. And Noah, along with his family and 2 of every animal, were the only things that survived out of every single person on earth.
So he knew, but no one else did.
Exactly. So the lesson there that everyone at home can apply is like, as you said before, people aren't going to understand your calling and your vision. And when you're preparing behind the scenes, exactly like we were just talking about with David, he was probably slung his slingshot hundreds of times at bears and lions protecting those sheep. And he might have thought, oh, this is just another day.
But he had faith.
But he had faith, and God had a purpose for him, and God was orchestrating in the background. So for Noah, he stuck with God's calling and his purpose, and he was able to be fruitful. And now he's pretty much been the father and lineage for the rest of the world that we sort of come from.
It's so crazy.
so powerful, bro.
It's so crazy because people can see something you're doing and just not understand it at all. Like I remember when I first started to make prank videos, it was so
remember.
far-fetched,
bro.
so out of the
This.
ordinary, where like no one understood what I was
People
doing.
put their limitations on you, and they think that you can't do it just because they can't fathom it.
They can't perceive
And they don't have
it,
the
they don't
context,
understand.
and they don't have the vision, and they don't have the call that God's given you.
I think that's so practical for like even this day and age, and especially young men watching this that have some sort of calling that they believe they have, or some sort of talent, skill set, dream, whatever it is, and their parents or their colleagues or their friends or their school friends, whatever it is, are just pushing them back because they don't understand.
100%.
People are going to
But,
doubt
like,
you always.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I think, in my case, if I had sort of like listened to the opinions of others or whoever they were, like friends, family, whatever it was, I wouldn't be in a position I am today. And I'm sure all of us wouldn't at the same time. I just think
100%.
that, you got to go with what essentially God's called you to do in your life, whether that makes sense to others or not. And perfect example of Noah, because it really did pay off in the end.
So essentially, work in silence, stick to your guns,
Yeah, stick it out, bro.
stick it out on what you believe and what you think is true, and doesn't matter what anyone else thinks.
Yeah.
Because once you do make it, everyone's
Then
going
it
to
makes
tell
sense.
you. Everyone's going to, that makes sense.
Or they're
what a
dead
great
'cause they
idea.
drowned.
Yeah.
Bro, no one else can even say
Or
anything.
they're dead 'cause
Bro,
they
it's probably the earth was flooding and everyone was like, bro, you were right, dead.
How did he survive 100 years though? That's my question.
I think it was
Back
100
then,
years. Yeah,
back-
it was-
back
bro, they
then they
lived.
used
They
to
lived a
live
long
a long
time
time.
back then.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah,
That's
but I
crazy.
actually have a mantra that I pretty much put to everything, and it's just trust the process. It's super
Absolutely,
simple, but I
yeah.
put that after every
love
note,
that, yeah.
all my plans in my notes. I have a bunch of messages, and on everything I have, I just have trust the process. Because when you know that you're within God's plan and you're taking the right steps to fulfill that, just trust the process. It might not happen now, it might not happen tomorrow, but if you know you're walking that path, that's all the conviction you need. So
I
yeah,
think a lot of people are just so scared to be different.
100%.
It's like everyone thinks
And it
they
is
want to be
scary.
different.
It is scary because
But they're-
people throw hate. Everyone wants to fit in. Everyone wants to be accepted.
Exactly.
It's part of us. But yeah,
But don't you think it's kind of ironic because everyone in this day and age wants to be like a millionaire, for example, or wants to achieve something crazy, but that in itself is being different.
Yeah.
But then when the work gets put in and when people say, why are you trying to be different, they kind of crumble. And I think social pressure and that story you just mentioned is so relevant because I think people should be, willing and almost aspire to be different. It's actually a good thing because it's like that's how you get, an edge above people, and that's how you obviously stand out amongst the crowd. And I think we need people to really like further showcase their differences from one another, because that's what makes the world, an interesting place. And that's what actually
100%,
allows
yes.
us to get our God-given talents out there and actually do good for the world. So guys out there, like, don't be afraid to be different,
We're so fortunate that we, all four of us, have God. And it gives us almost this superpower of knowing that, like, doesn't matter, despite everything else, if this is God's will, it will happen. We've seen it with Noah, we've seen it with David. Despite all the setbacks and quote unquote impossible tasks, had faith and persevered, and in the end were successful.
100%. Yeah, I think adding on to that, we can't do a Bible lessons episode without talking about Jesus.
100%.
Amen.
One of the most influential, radical, life-transforming, and world-changing characters who's ever walked the earth.
Let's
right?
be honest, he's the most famous man that ever lived.
And he's
Literally.
appreciated in
Ever.
all religions as well.
100%. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think the embodiment of Jesus is like, it's so contrary to like how we sort of live in this day and age.
Bro, it's literally
It's the opposite.
It's hard to put words to.
It is.
It is,
It's
yeah.
almost like if you do something that we think is good, but the opposite, it's even better.
Yeah.
Or like the opposite is actually good.
Yeah, so literally, like, if you're living with a worldly mindset, everything's about me. What can I get? I want to be more famous. I want to make $1 million. I want to have 1 million followers. It's all about you. What can I do to get more successful?
Yeah.
What girlfriend or boyfriend is going to be good for me? And everyone's so self-absorbed, right?
Yeah.
But a cool lesson you can learn from Jesus is like, he's the kind of guy who was pretty much like the sent king from God, the Son of God, who could come in on a flaming horse and come in and say, "You're all cucks. Listen to me. I run the show."
Yeah.
He could have done that.
Yeah.
He
He
could have
could've,
been
yeah. And that's what was
the
expected
power
of
he
him
had.
as well.
That's what you
Everyone
would
thought
think
that
of
as
Yeah.
a king
Yeah.
of the world who's God's son could come in and be like, "Nah, you're all screwed." He literally came in humble, and he set the tone to be a servant king, right? He put others before himself. He came and served other people, which I think flips the whole worldly perception completely on its head.
Yeah.
And I think it's such a practical way to live, because we even know, and guests we brought on have said this in different ways. Like, when you actually look to serve others, first of all, you're more fulfilled. They want to help you more, and you actually get further in life.
Yeah.
Because people know if people are
And you
trying to
feel
get things
amazing.
off you. Yeah. And so, like, he literally set the tone to be like, don't do what the world does. Put others before yourself. Look to be generous. Look to serve others. And that's actually where the power is. So there's so much we can learn there.
For some of the people that don't know, what was some of the crazy things that Jesus did that shows humility and shows this amazing man who put everyone before himself?
I think there was one thing that I can sort of think of that comes to mind is when, Jesus in his might and in his power of being able to heal people, of being able to cast out demons and essentially do everything. I think there was this really great, story about how obviously he had his disciples that used to follow him and used to exalt him and help him with everything he did. But just because he was sort of the leader of that tribe and he was able to, guide them in the right direction and do all these amazing things in the world, he was still able to humble himself. And before he actually died, he ended up washing their feet.
yes, bro.
That's
As a
That's
sign of
so-
humility. Like, imagine you're like the CEO of some big
Yes,
company,
bro.
right?
That's so
honestly.
good.
Right? And
think
you're
you're-
like,
you're
you
too good
manage,
for that.
yeah, you've got like 1,000 staff under you, you work in some big building on the 200th floor. And then you go right down to the guy doing like work experience who's in year 7 at school. And you go, listen, I'm no better than you. Of course, we have differences and whatnot, but I value you as a human. We're all equal. And therefore, I'm going to humble myself and do this act of, washing your feet. It's
And
amazing.
and it's seen as like the ultimate, like dreaded, like it's below me task
yeah,
to
yeah.
right.
wash some random person's feet.
Yeah.
Like no one in this day and age would do that. Like people wouldn't do that to their siblings,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
their family
Yeah.
members. Jesus has done it literally to the bottom of the heap. And that just shows that he didn't feel that he was better than everyone, even though he was the king of the world.
Yeah.
That's right.
But taking it to an even more practical level, exactly what you said. Imagine what a message it would send if you were the CEO of a company with 1,000 employees
100%.
and you were the guy who went down in front of all the staff and started taking out the trash and say they're all eating cake. You take the dishes and say, guys, I'm going to clean this. The cleaner's there. You say, you be nice to the cleaner. You take the bins out.
It should
Bro,
be like that.
Imagine what a message that would send. The
respect.
employees would be like, man, this guy's so humble. Like he's worth millions of dollars and he's out here just doing normal tasks like cleaning the dishes. A lot of people will get in their mind and think, oh, I'm powerful. Oh, I'll pay you to do that. You're below me. You you do this for me. You wash my car. You take my dishes.
So
Like,
you
flip
get-
that on its head.
You get loyal followers. You get loyal people
Bro.
that believe in your message.
Imagine
and
how
what
much
you're trying
respect
to do.
you'd get.
Respect, bro.
But even just how we're reacting to the thought of that. It's
Yeah,
like, as
100%.
humans, I believe that we're inherently designed to know what's good and what's bad, right?
Yeah, 100%.
So it's like, even if someone was to say, like, I want to, you know, if I asked you, right, and I said, hey, what do you want to do in this world? Or I want to get famous. I want everyone to worship me. I want to be the richest man on earth so I can do whatever I want. I want to have, like, you know, 700 wives and 300
Concubines, yeah.
concubines, yeah.
Right.
If someone said that to me, I'd be like you're, a piece
You're
of
an
crap.
idiot.
But it's funny, right? Because so many people, I'd say most people, and especially young guys out there, literally have no idea that they are living their life in the pursuit of only this. And if someone actually just said to them to their face, hey, like, I believe you're living for this, they'd feel embarrassed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's actually like, you don't want to be living for these things. It's just that we've been so brainwashed and acclimatized to culture that we think these are at the top of the hierarchy. Whereas Jesus showcased that it's actually something called the upside down kingdom, where it's like to receive, you have to give. It's not that by doing more in terms of actions we receive. It's more like if we give. So it's always the opposite effect. And I think that he like embodies that perfectly.
And wasn't there a story about Jesus and a prostitute?
Yeah, that's a good one,
Yeah,
bro.
that's a really good one.
Yeah, so for context on that one, basically, a prostitute came to Jesus, and I think there was a bunch of religious people standing around
Pharisees.
saying, you know, this woman has slept with so many different guys, and back in that day, if you
Be
were
condemned,
promiscuous,
yeah.
you would be killed.
Yeah.
So you would get stoned to death.
Yeah.
That's
Condemned,
crazy.
yeah.
So all these religious people coming around saying to Jesus, she's a prostitute. She's been promiscuous. Like, we should stone her. And they were looking for his acceptance to be like, yeah, we should do that. But he completely flipped it on its head and goes, this is what was amazing about Jesus. He actually accepted the outcast, and he actually pointed the finger. The only people that he condemned were people that put themselves on a pedestal.
Pride.
Yes.
Which is crazy. So he actually said, okay, let's do that. But for anyone here who's never sinned and who's clean and who hasn't sinned, you throw the first stone.
I
Wow,
love that,
and no one
bro.
threw a
Bro,
stone.
I
and
love that.
imagine you trying to throw this hay, and everyone sins.
Bro,
Like that,
everyone's
it's
lined
in
up.
human nature.
Everyone's lined up.
Ready
With
to
a
go,
freeze,
yeah.
In a
They just
line
freeze.
to throw at this woman.
Yeah.
And then he just drops that, goes, all right, go. Who of you have not sinned?
Yeah,
Because
wow.
a sin's a sin.
Sin is
Whether
sin,
she's a
yeah.
prostitute, whether you're a cheater, whether you've lied, steal, whatever.
Pride.
Sin's a sin. And he's lined them up and gone, all right, you throw the... I did it. Ding, 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 ding. He's gone, you throw the first stone if you haven't sinned. And everyone just was taken aback.
Imagine that.
That's
They'd be
amazing.
like, damn.
Actually.
Yeah, about that. Well, that's so powerful. But even off the back of that, like, imagine someone coming in who has all the right to go and point the finger, the anointed king of those people, and he was actually the one who accepted the outcasts. So the people of society who were rejected, who were poor, who had no food to eat, he was the one who was like, nah, you come with me. I'm going to accept you. I'm going to include you. When all the people who were the religious leaders who put themselves on a pedestal were like outcasting, he was like, nah, I'm going to accept that, which is so powerful.
It's funny how we inherently are just like so like amazed by these things, and we're
Bro,
just
imagine
so like
doing that.
Yeah, like like you'd respect someone that did that. But I want to make a point here as well. I think that a lot of people can take there's a difference between kindness and serving versus weakness, and I think a lot of people, even someone I
that's
know,
true. That's good.
someone I know said this, and they go, "Oh, why would Jesus be one of your superheroes? He embodies weakness, or he embodies like softness."
It's not weakness,
And I go, no, there's actually a difference, because don't forget that amongst all the amazing things Jesus did with humility, with forgiveness, with acceptance, with all these people, he also embodied the traits of an actual stoic man at the same time. There was that story about how Jesus, there was a church, and Jesus walked into the church, which is obviously God's holy temple, and he actually saw people in the church not worshiping God like they should be, but actually trading and buying and selling in the church.
Yeah.
And he flipped the tables in anger. And there's something called righteous anger. I think that there's a difference between just losing your head half the time over nothing, versus righteously clamping your foot down and saying, actually, no, this isn't right, and I'm not going to put up with it. So he embodies all the characteristics of that idealistic man that I believe that a lot of young men should really take wisdom from, and understand that no, just because Jesus did forgive and he was a kind person and he loved everyone, he did things in love, which means what we just said.
Yeah, 100%. And even off the back of that, like the life lessons that you can get from some of the stories, like we've obviously all read them, but like the parables, Jesus spoke in parables, the life lessons that come from these stories that he uses are so applicable, and they're just absolutely incredible. So like for anyone listening who's interested, just even read those, even if you're not Christian. Like the life lessons I even got from just reading those stories of like, you know, putting other people first, or like, you know, how to sow into the kingdom, or you know, anything like that. It's just so applicable. So yeah.
But even those two stories that you just said, you know, one of them talks about, and this is very applicable to everyone these days, right? Don't ever think of yourself better than anyone. Doesn't matter what success or what you've achieved in your life. You, whether you're the CEO or the cleaner, we are all the same. And if you have that outlook on life, your life will be so much more enriched, and you'll be so much more empathetic and humble, and you're going to be so much more successful in your life. And the other lesson that you talked about was about integrity, all right? So Jesus believed that they were doing something wrong, and his anger, because he felt that other people were doing something wrong, he had the integrity to pull them up and tell them that they're wrong.
Exactly.
So as a young man, if you are somewhere, you see someone doing something wrong, or you feel like you're doing something wrong, have the integrity to pull them up or pull yourself up and do the right thing. There's a quote that I want to say. So the right decision is often the hardest one to make. So this emphasizes that making the correct choice can be challenging, but it is ultimately the most rewarding and ethical path to take.
Wow.
That's good.
Well, yeah, you think about like when you do something that's hard, it feels good at the end of it, right? That sounded weird. But you think that like if we were just to do everything, and I always preach this all the time, like doing things that we just feel like doing never leads us to fulfillment in the first place. So
100%. We always say this, even with training, right? Like you don't want to train. It's the hard decisions. It's the hard path.
Yeah.
It's the unbeaten track. That's where the success is.
Exactly.
It's taking the risk when no one else sees it. It's doing that training session when no one else believes in your vision.
Yeah.
100%. That's so applicable
Have
to every
integrity,
area of life.
stay on your path,
And make
work-
the hard decisions.
And make the
if
hard
it's
decisions.
if it's on the right track.
that's
So
right.
I think to kind of finish off the podcast, we have a few quotes that we want to leave you guys with. Some Bible verses,
Yeah,
a
or
few
ideas,
quotes
yeah.
or ideas
Yep.
that we think will be very powerful as a take home for you guys at the end of the podcast.
100%. I think one that for me makes the Bible so powerful is like, imagine this. The Bible was written over 1,500 years from 40 different authors in 3 different languages. And every single story in the Bible lines up to prophesy and tell the story of Jesus. We've spoken about this before. Chinese whispers. Imagine that. What are the chances that this whole story pulled together is written by a human?
Yeah.
It's
Crazy.
not physically possible.
We sit in a circle and we play Chinese whispers when we were a kid.
Yeah.
And by the time you get to the end of the circle, it's a completely different word.
1,500 years, 40
crazy.
authors, 3 different languages, and it all lines up, tells the same story, prophesies the same thing, and there's
when
no
the-
contradiction.
And even if we talk like Bible prophecy, you know, the Euphrates River drying up recently, or Noah's Ark being discovered, like there's just all these crazy things that legitimize and validate the Bible being, you know,
Well,
a
the
book
Bi-
of so
yeah.
much truth.
The Bible literally prophesied those things hundreds, if
Exactly.
not thousands of years ago, and we're
Imagine
seeing them
that.
come to life right now. I've actually got something even crazier. I think this might be the craziest thing I've ever seen that's been predicted in
That's
the
a
Bible.
big call.
It's a big call, but this absolutely blew my mind when I found out about it. So the original Bible, the early books were written in Hebrew, right?
And Aramaic.
No, but the first few were in Hebrew. That was the original
He
language.
spoke Aramaic.
Yeah. So it was written in Hebrew. And the genealogy in the first few books of the Bible, for those that know, is like Adam first, then his son was Seth, then Enosh, then Kenan. And then I'll probably pronounce those wrong, but there's basically the first 10 or so people in the genealogy of the start of the world, basically. And in the original Hebrew, when you take the meanings of their names, get this.
Oh, I've heard something about this.
So Adam means man. That's like the original translation.
Yep.
Seth is appointed. And then the first 10, I'll read out each of their names, their meaning. It actually spells this. Man is appointed mortal sorrow, but the blessed God shall come down teaching. His death shall bring the despairing comfort and rest.
What?
Wow.
So think about this. And if you want to think about how much God has a plan and knows all things and has prophesied things from the start of time, Adam, the first man who ever lived, I don't know how long ago, but it was long before Jesus came. This lineage is prophesying Jesus coming from the first 10 people in their names,
Wow.
the original meaning of what their names actually are.
Wow.
That's
When I
insane.
found out about that, imagine that God's prophesying Jesus from the first people who ever walked the earth in their names.
It's all linked, man.
I just
It's
think that
insane.
God-
There's so many things like that.
Yeah, the world is so much more complex than we can fathom as human beings. And that's why, you know, God has a plan for all of us and God knows things that we don't. It's like, how can we understand, like, you know, archaeology or, like, you know, things that live under the sea, or just like how a grain of sand came to fruition? Like all these,
It's all
random things.
articulately
Bro.
planned by God.
And
Everything
even,
is
I always,
God's
I always
design.
say this as well. Like, look how not that we're perfect, but like, look how well constructed human beings are.
Bro,
It's
on a
like-
cellular,
it's
molecular
just
level.
crazy. Like we have like eyes to see, mouths to eat, and speak, and ears to hear. Like all these intricate details. Even how like reproducing works.
Yeah.
It's all like designed so perfectly, and like we couldn't have ever thought of these things. It has to be from a high creator.
Love it.
All right, guys. So obviously we've all talked, and I hope there's a lot of lessons that you all can take from this.
100%.
I want to end with a Bible verse.
Love it.
Nice.
So this is from Jeremiah 29:11. For I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord. Plans to prosper you and not to harm you. Plans to give you hope and a future.
Bro, that's so powerful and the perfect way to finish it off. So if you guys believe, like we obviously believe there's power in that. If God obviously wrote this Bible with purpose, and he said there's a purpose for you. Exactly what we've spoken about. We've spoken about characters who might have gone through a situation and not believe that it was amount to anything, and they had purpose. Every single person has purpose if you're listening. So that's just, bro, that's so
And God has
encouraging
a-
to hear that.
And God has a plan for everyone.
100%.
Each
That's
and
right.
every one of you guys.
So I think that's the perfect way to wrap it up.
Hope you guys enjoyed that episode. We definitely did.
And now a word from our sponsor, Getaways.
The boys and I are blessed to be partnering with Getaways, who have some amazing short stay homes all around Australia.
Whatever the occasion, whether it's a trip away with your boys, a family holiday, or even a surprise vacation for your partner, Getaways has you covered.
Make sure you guys go ahead and check out Getaways on their website or on their social media platforms. We'll be leaving the link in the description below.